Today we're going to be talking about the Tesla solar panels and Powerwall install that we did at our house. So I'm going to go through the whole process, the timeline, how long it took, what was hard or easy, and let you know how that worked out. So without further ado, here we go. The initial information that you input into the Tesla website and get the initial solar information was really easy. But the next part, once we put that deposit in and they put the designs together, I realized just how stupid everything was. Certainly, these were some of the worst designs that I've ever seen because, as you probably know, in the northern hemisphere here, the south direction is where we get the most of our sunlight. And their initial designs, they avoided southeast or southwest and instead put on northeast and northwest. We ended up having to go through 3 iterations of the design for the rooftop. We ended up putting the maximum number of panels on our southeast and southwest rooftops. There's 5 different planes that those were mounted on, and then we put the remaining on the northwest side of the house. And I should mention the northeast side of the house. That's the side of the house that faces the road. So not only did they put them on the non-optimal side, they made as many panels as possible face the front of our house. So when you pull up to our house, they would have been everywhere. I learned a lot about the requirements and the fire code and that type of thing because I did a couple of iterations where I sent it to them because I thought they were just incompetent. But in the end, we came to a design that I thought was fair and reasonable, and we could actually proceed with and install. And at that point, we were able to accept the terms of the agreement and place the order. So we were able to move through that process. That was, again, quick and easy and simple. The Tesla stuff is online, and they do make all that easy when you're filling out forms or completing documents. Super easy on all of that. Then the next step was a site assessment and getting the permitting through our local township. The site assessment was pretty neat. A fella came out with the droid, flew that back and forth. If you can imagine, sort of like one of the robot vacuum cleaners that goes in lines back and forth, and then it actually went the other way as well. So it creates a 3D image of the roof and does all the measurements and that type of thing. He also went up into our attic and checked all the structural information up there to make sure that we were good to go. Pretty easy on my part. Took him a while, and he was here for a while that day, but no major concerns. Definitely the site assessment was fine. And then they put in and submit the final details for the order and make sure everything's in alignment there, and you go ahead and accept that. That's the point where you'd have to change if you want your Powerwall somewhere different, or if you want something else changed about your system, you would do that during that process. And then we waited for the township to complete the initial approval. That took a little bit of time, but I'm not sure if that was the township or if that was Tesla. There's indications of each, so I don't want to really put that on anybody in particular. It took a little bit of time, but it wasn't horrible. What was horrible was what came next, and that was waiting on our electric company to approve the install. It took months for them to approve it. And I know there's some back and forth, and I don't know if Tesla made a mistake on the one form or if they required something different or different drawing or what it was exactly. But that process was drawn out forever. It was like 3 months of this, waiting for the utility to approve to say, yeah, go ahead and put it in. Patience. It's the virtue I don't have time for. And they were really testing my patience during this process. Once that was complete, we were able to get the install scheduled, but that was like a 6-week lead time. And then when we did get to the week where they were supposed to do the install, it just rained. It was the worst weather week we've had this year by far. Tons of rain, flooding in the area, lots of wind, just not a good time to be on a roof. So what ended up happening was the first 2 days, they canceled those days, and they showed up on the third day. The third and fourth day, those were, day 1 and 2 of the actual install of the solar panels and the power walls. They spent 25 to 50% of the time in their trucks because it was raining and windy and that type of thing. Then they came back. There was almost a week in between till they came back. And then they had one more date where they did the rest of the install. So they finalized the install of all the solar panels and the power walls on the third day they were actually here. After that, it was about 3 days later until we got to the point where we did the inspection through the local township and inspection authorities. That same day, Tesla actually sent out their own folks that did like an audit of the process and reviewed the work and that type of thing. So it was like a quality control. Also signed off on the credits for the solar to be used by Tesla. So at this point, we're back into a waiting game with the utility. So we have everything set up. We're able to operate locally on site, but we are not able to export at this point. So we need the permission to export from the utility before we do that. So what we're doing right now is we're charging the power walls from the solar throughout the day, in addition to using solar for our house. And then overnight, when the sun isn't out, or if it gets cloudy and the sun isn't out, we're pulling off those power walls. So since the install, we haven't had to use a material amount from the grid. There's been a time or two, like when they did the inspection, where they had to disconnect some things for the quality control. And during that period of time, obviously, we couldn't use items that were disconnected. So we used a little bit off the grid there, but definitely nothing substantial. And we've been able to run off of solar since the install. But I'm really excited to get to the point where we can export it as well to the utility. Just wait a second, Josh from the future. And we were able to get the permission to operate, the permission to export from the utility company at this point. So that was around the week of May 13th. And you can see from the Gantt chart here that we had about an 8.5 month process from the beginning of the process to the end, which is definitely longer than they quote. I believe they quoted us, 4 to 6 months at the time. About double that from the shorter estimate at that point. But well worth the wait. I mean, we're really excited to get this thing rolling, and thus far it's been really cool and really advantageous to us to be able to utilize our own power to power our smart home here, as well as our vehicle and everything else that goes with that, and then begin to start exporting the power also. So being able to charge things off the grid as needed or export power as needed is really cool. The permission to export took about a month or so from the utility. So our utility was probably right on par for that one. I think they usually quote 4 to 6 weeks for that particular portion. And given their time frame for the earlier approval, I was really surprised that they were this quick. Initially, they came out to figure out why we had disconnected our meter, and I explained to them the solar and everything, and they said no problem, and they retagged it and everything, all was well there. And then they came out a couple weeks after that and switched out the meter because the meter we had only could do the smart metering on the import, into our house, not the export. So the guy came out, opened it up. I was talking to him. He jumped the terminals there, pulled the meter, which was really easy. Actually, I was surprised. Just grab it, pull it, and it's jumped over that. So you get free power for these couple of minutes while they're doing it. They grab the other meter, pop it in place, and pull that jumper off and close it up and tag it, and all is well again. So really quick and easy process. I did look at our utility. We have hourly information on our utility website that we can download on a daily basis, and it did start to show that export as well after that meter swap there. So all seems to be good to go, and really happy thus far. I'll definitely provide you an update once we have some time that we can use it and see how the summer season works out for us with the sun, higher in the sky, that type of thing. But until next time, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos.